It is Wednesday, my dudes, and it is damn good to have you here on The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lazia, to the right of Jesse Cofield, who is to my left. We have an action-packed show today. Do we not, young lady? Would you mind teasing what's coming up in the next 55 minutes? I'm so happy you were here today.
I love that you like to show off that you can tell left from right. You're like, to my left.
Left for Lazia.
Okay, yeah. So we have a lot going on. PGA Tour and Live are merging.
The drama.
We thought was an absolute joke yesterday. Turns out not a joke. So we're going to talk about that.
Yep.
We'll talk about Game 3 going down in the NBA Finals.
Really? There's some other big news in Miami, too, we'll bring up.
Yeah, and it rhymes with Schmessy.
Yeah.
Gojo going to invade the Sweat. So we will talk to Mike Golick Jr., But let's start. How about we start with our MLB panel?
Look at these guys.
We have three dudes here right now. DraftKings contributors Gary Thorne, Tanner Kern, and Nick Fryer. So, unlike the last few Wednesdays.
Well, hold on. I think we should start. I think we should start with the big pitching news.
Okay, go ahead. Start with it.
Gare Bear, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Jacob deGrom's going to miss the rest of the season, right? Tommy John surgery here, dude. Impact on the Rangers, what's it going to be, and how will you also navigate betting Texas moving forward?
Can I take a guess that it's bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, not great. Not great. You want Jacob deGrom healthy. I think it's fair to point out that Texas has been this good without the services of Jacob deGrom primarily. He's only pitched 6 games this season. But I do think when you look at the way they built this rotation, they needed to sign as many pitchers as they did because all the pitchers they signed have track records of really spotty injury histories. I mean, John Gray, not a picture of health. Andrew Heaney, not a guy who's ever thrown 200 innings in a season. So right now, I think they're fine. I think their offense is just so dominant they can continue to skate by. I think the AL West is a very winnable division. But if they have 1 or 2 more pitcher injuries, which again, not outside the realm of possibility based on track record, then this starts to get a little dicey. So I would not be investing heavily in like Rangers World Series futures, or if you haven't already hopped on the Rangers to win the AL West bandwagon, now is not the time.
Yeah, Nick, Rangers rotation been terrific all season. Only the race starters own a better ERA, and to Garion's point, we've kind of seen how injuries have impacted that rotation. Eovaldi, Gray, Dunning, how much more pressure is on those 3 to perform now?
Well, I would think a substantial amount, but then when you look at what this offense has done, as Garion highlighted, I mean, they're absolutely explosive. And night in and night out, they're favored more often than I would have expected to coming into this season. And this is why, though, I was like going into the year, I was taking the under on the Rangers prop because I didn't have much confidence in the rest of the rotation. Obviously, I've been wrong about them so far. And then Jacob deGrom, I thought he was going to break down, not in this capacity. But yeah, it's shocking. And I mean, just you have that news yesterday, and I'm surprised you didn't ask Garion about Alek Manoah too, because now he's been banished to Florida after being an All-Star last year.
Jesus, Garion, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm recovering well. I actually have tickets to the game on Saturday. Did not want to see Alek Manoah pitch, so great news for me that Alek Manoah going down to Florida. They had to do something. I don't know. They've got their big old billion-dollar pitching complex down there. You go figure yourself out, Alek Manoah, and make me don't have to watch you on Saturday. So really win-win for everybody.
All right, can we talk about...
Do you want to talk about tonight now?
Tonight now, yeah. Okay, so we only have 2 games, guys, on the earlier side of things
screw
today.
that, Tanner.
So we're going to focus on the games going on tonight. So, Tanner, let's start with a money line play that has you paying attention tonight. Who do you like?
So I'm going to go with the Angels on the money line against the Cubs. When I look at Chicago, there's one primary reason I just can't touch them in this spot, and it's Jameson Taillon. He's pitching tonight. He's 1-3 with a 7.05 ERA and a 1.51 WHIP. Just simply has not been that good. He's controlled the walks. He's controlled the home runs allowed, but the hits have just been unbearable. 45 hits allowed in 37 innings. When you look at Jaime Barria going for the Angels, he's been very good. 2-2 with a 1.59 ERA and a 1.0 WHIP. Only 2 homers allowed in 34 innings. And then when you look at the Angels coming into the series, they have won 2 games, or coming into tonight, they have won 2 games in a row. They're 16-13 at home. Cubs have been very poor on the road this season at 11-18. So Angels for a fair price tonight, lock it in.
All right, what do we think, Garion?
So I'm staring at the Mets tonight. This was actually plus 105 about 20 minutes ago. It's moved to plus 100 or even money. Makes sense to me. You look at this pitching matchup, nothing against Charlie Morton. He's been like the most consistent pitcher in baseball the last 5 years. But Max Scherzer's starting to look like Max Scherzer. And it just is odd to ever get Max Scherzer as an underdog, even on the road, even against a really good Braves team. But in Scherzer's last 4 starts, 1.08 ERA that's backed up by a 2.16 FIP. He's striking out batters again. He's Max Scherzer again. He's got a 30% strikeout rate in that 4-game stretch. Like I said, Morton's fine. The Braves have lost his last 3 starts, though. He's got a 4.33 expected ERA this season, which is about a run higher than his actual ERA. I just think there's value here with Max Scherzer. Again, a guy you cannot often bet as an underdog.
All right, talk to me, Nick. Where are you going on this one?
You know, it was really hard to start talking about the Rangers right off the rip for a non-money line reason, and that's who I wanted to talk about right now in this spot going up against the Cardinals. I was ready to tip my hand really early, but you look at John Gray going tonight against the Cardinals. I know his season-long FIP indicates that his season-long ERA is due to balloon, but since the start of May, he's got an ERA below 2, a FIP of like 3.6, and then of course that's good enough because he has an offense that absolutely crushes right-handed pitching. 202 ISO for the Rangers since mid-May against right-handed pitching, and then you look at their contact during that span too. 39.5% hard contact rate, 24% line drive rate, and I know Jack Flaherty seems to have turned a corner a little bit, but at the same time, you look at those last 2 starts where he's put up some good numbers. He has a 30% line drive rate, and then he's posted a sub 20% strikeout rate, and to have that going up against the Rangers, it's a lineup that doesn't strike out much against righties. To me, that spells a recipe for disaster for the Cardinals.
All right, Gare Bear, give me a player prop. A player prop that makes the most sense in your Canadian eyes tonight.
Let's go with the Canadian team then.
Yeah!
Chris Bassett over 4.5 strikeouts at minus 120. This is a pretty low number, in my opinion. Bassett's season got off to a terrible start. He gave up 4 home runs in like 2 innings against the Cardinals in his first start of the season. If you just ignore that start, not only is his ERA sub 2.5, but his strikeout rate's a very reasonable 23%, and he's actually gone over this prop in 9 of his last 11 starts, which is probably why it's gone from minus 120 to minus 130 in the last 10 minutes. I just think it's a strikeout too low. And the Astros historically have been one of the lowest strikeout rate teams in all of baseball, going back to like 2016, 2017. They're not quite that good. They're not the Cubs. They're not the Tigers, but they're about a middle of the pack strikeout team so far this season. And while a lot of this had to do with Kevin Gausman, they struck out 16 times yesterday. So there are some swings and misses in this lineup.
Nick, you're a big player prop guy. So give me your player prop du jour, please, around Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the one that I stumbled upon. This is actually the game that Tanner was talking about before, the Angels-Cubs game, in a similar mind to what Gary was talking about with Bassett. Jaime Barria over 4.5 strikeouts against the Cubs. He's only made 2 starts this season, primarily working out of the bullpen, but in those 2 starts, he went 5 innings, and he logged 6 strikeouts in both of those outings. I would think that this would be a little bit higher, but I'll take that little extra room and back him to go over 4.5 strikeouts. The Cubs had the 7th highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching this season, but when you look at what they've done recently, it's only gotten worse. Like since mid-May, they have a 28.3% strikeout rate, and that is the 2nd highest in all baseball against right-handed pitching.
What's your favorite player prop on the board tonight, Tanner?
So I'm going to go Mookie Betts over 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. And I absolutely love this play. He's gone over in 3 of his past 5 games. And when you look at it, it's plus money. So you really can't beat it. Mookie Betts is a guy that can do everything. He can hit for average. He can hit for power. And when he gets on the bases, he can steal, which really gives you a high probability of hitting this bet. And when you look at who he's facing tonight, and Brandon Williamson of the Reds has not been that good this season. 4.29 ERA with a 1.33 whip. Mookie Betts is slugging about 90 points higher off lefties this season as well. And the total in this game is set at 11 runs. So bookmakers are expecting a lot of offense, which also plays into this prop tonight.
All right, finally, let's take a look at tonight's DFS slate. Nick, is there a player that you need to make sure that you have in your lineup tonight?
Yeah, Christian Walker at 3.9K. I was actually thinking about talking about his total basis prop earlier, but the Barria one was just too mind-blowing for me. But Christian Walker going up against Patrick Corbin. He hasn't done anything in his last, 10 or so plate appearances against left-handed pitching, actually 9. But since the start of May, he still has a 619 ISO against left-handed pitching, a 40% hard contact rate, 50% fly ball rate against left-handed pitching this season. And again, he's facing Patrick Corbin, who I know seemed to figure things out at the start of May, but then became Patrick Corbin again. And even despite the good numbers that he put up earlier in the month, righty still had a 35.6% hard contact rate against him and a 26.7% line drive against Corbin throughout the month of May.
Interesting. Tanner.
Wow.
I was just really absorbing that.
That's a lot of information to take
get
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is that what I'm
Also,
supposed to
do
here?
you have a little bit of an
Not me.
accent,
I like
Fryer?
it. I'm listening.
Wait, Fryer, do you have a little bit of an accent? You were like pitching.
Oh,
Pitching.
now she's attacking you.
I'm not
Wow.
attacking.
This is gaslighting.
I'm not attacking. I'm
This
asking
is
you a question.
gaslighting.
I mean, that's the sort of Chicago-based accent he picked up at his years at Northwestern.
I'm saying you were like I don't know, it's pitching. Like,
Well,
I'm hearing
okay.
it. It's a lot like when my wife says car, and I'm like, all right, dude, we get it from you're from Buffalo.
yeah. Okay,
know they
Tanner,
had
a DFS player that you are eyeing for your lineup this evening is who?
Yeah, Nick, I thought the explanation was top tier there.
Yeah,
so nice
we
work.
all did.
I'm going to go with Jonathan India for $5,400, 12.2 average fantasy points in his past 10 games. He's going to face Noah Syndergaard, and Syndergaard just has not seemed to find any level of control this season. 1-4 with a 6.54. That's almost Alek Manoah numbers right there, and a 1.3 WHIP. When you look at India off righties this season, batting 297 compared to 224 off lefties, so the matchup is ideal against Syndergaard. 6 home runs, 30 RBIs, been very hot in his past 5 games as well. And again, I see a lot of runs being scored tonight, so India is a very good DFS play for a nice value at $5,400.
All right, Garion, what's up? DFS player that you're looking at.
So I didn't think by this point in the show we'd have already talked about this guy twice, but I'm here with 2 handsome and intelligent analysts. So
Thank you.
We talked a lot about Jaime Barria. He was only $7,000 tonight. And while we've highlighted the positives of Jaime Barria, we haven't really talked about how bad the Cubs have been. And that's just as important to why he's viable tonight. The Cubs across the last 2 weeks, 28.1% strikeout rate. That is the highest mark in the National League. They also have the lowest WRC plus and lowest WOBA of any team in baseball in that span of time. Barria has built up. He threw 91 pitches in his last start. He's basically just a starter now, even though the numbers are mostly from the bullpen. 7K is a very, very nice price in this matchup for a guy like Barria.
Gary, and congratulations on Josh Allen being named the next Madden cover athlete. I know it's like your hometown team.
Why are you stirring up trouble today?
All right, Bucko.
He can't help it.
Okay.
He's just born this way. Dad.
Wow.
That's it. That's all the time we have. We'll see if we can get more from Gojo with Josh Allen landing on the cover of Madden. Coming up next, Mike Golick Jr. standing by. We'll dive into the live stuff and also Messi to Miami. Yep, there's Rory, not looking happy.
All right, every weekday, Mike Golick Jr. drops the Gojo Show, okay? He comes out with a lot of fun stuff on the hottest topics across sports. He dives into pop culture. It's amazing. He has special guests. We love that. So you can grab the show wherever you listen to your favorite pods, you know, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and more.
Yeah. What'd you guys talk about today?
Oh, and right now.
Oh,
Mike
and right
Golick
now.
Jr.
Oh,
's
I was supposed to
here.
say that. Damn it. I had one job.
Idiot.
Anyway, Mike's here on Wednesdays too.
Man, amazing. I do like the idea of dropping a show. Like, I don't hand it to anybody. I just drop it. It's like, yeah, you could pick it up there. I'm going to make you pick it up off the ground here. I'm not just going to nicely hand it to you or anything. But we talked about today, I showed my dad that baby Gronk video that was going viral yesterday, and I think his head exploded.
Yeah.
What? I haven't
People
seen
have
it. I
asked
haven't
if they
seen it.
can,
You mean-
if they could unsee that.
Okay.
And the answer is you can't unsee it.
You
once
mean
you've
there was
seen it.
news out there besides the PGA Tour Live merger?
Yeah, I mean,
There's some-
baby Gronk might be the Riz King now. Yeah, it's big news, Emerson.
All right, well, I will get on top of it. What was your reaction when you saw the Live PGA Tour news come across your Twitter timeline? We're all sitting around in the kitchen. We're mashing Dunkin' Donuts before we taped Jared's show yesterday morning.
We were like, is it April
This is
1st?
fake.
We were like, no, it's June. There's no way.
Mike, this-
we thought it was fake.
Mike, this is huge, dude.
Yeah, I was stunned like everybody else. And as the day went along, we saw and heard just how few people actually knew this was coming, even if people thought eventually something like this might be the reality, right? Obviously, there's been a faction of people that thought for a long time that eventually Live Golf and the PGA would be combined in some form or absorbed in some form. But to see it announced this way and then to find out Jay Monahan essentially acted alone and Leroy Jenkins, this thing was pretty wild.
Yeah, they were like, nobody knew.
I know.
All
So-
the players like got an email being like, surprise, babe.
And like I talked to Jeff Ulrich a little bit about it yesterday, Mike, and he'll be joining us later in this show. Imagine being guys like Hideki and a few others who were reportedly offered hundreds of millions to join Live, said, no, I'm going to remain loyal to the tour. Like, how the hell do you think they feel right now?
Betrayed, certainly. And I think for guys that publicly put their reputation on the line also and came out and had to speak publicly about this, we think of Rory McIlroy and the guys that got put in front of microphones and had to answer tough questions about the entire dynamic at play here, and then had someone, at least based on what we know right now, it sounds like go and act without consulting them or act without their interests in mind in a way that makes them look somewhat hypocritical. But to be clear, the only person that I think looks like a hypocrite in this situation is Jay Monahan, who came out a year ago at the same tournament that he's now trying to explain his decision to the players at, and invoked the 9/11 families and asked if PGA players had ever wanted to apologize for being on the PGA Tour the way that the Live golfers have. He went and invoked a moral high ground that was eventually going to lead to this, him looking like a massive hypocrite on the public stage in a way that, to your point, Emerson, how do you feel if you're those players? That's the question that comes now. How are the most important players on the tour made whole? And that's what we're going to wait and see, because quite frankly, we don't know a lot about the specifics of this deal because it sounds like it was rushed to fruition to avoid a lot of the weird legal process that was going on right now between the two sides, and basically say, we'll combine forces now. We'll figure out exactly what it looks like later and how we are going to get all these players to stop being mad enough to let Jay Monahan keep his job.
And Monahan
Also maybe rushed to fruition so that like it couldn't leak and people couldn't come out and say like, we're going to be horrified if this happens. Like, there's no way we're going to be on board with this. They were just like, the deal is done. And these days, it's almost impossible for stuff not to leak, right? Like, I feel like this is one of the rare times where we had no inkling of this coming out, and then all of a sudden, boom, the deal is done. What was the last announcement that you can remember that was this shocking in sports that nobody saw coming?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would look back, and ironically enough, I think the best comparison comes in college football. When you look structurally at college football, English soccer, and golf, there are massive similarities between the three. You have massive bodies as far as your constituents, whether it's the teams in English soccer and college football or the players in the PGA Tour. But really, it's only a group of about 20 or so that have enough power, influence, and popularity to actually influence what's going to happen with the future of all of these sports. And so when you look at shocking moves that change the landscape of the sport that very few people knew about, I think of all the conference realignment we've seen in the last 2 years, right? UCLA and USC moving to the Big Ten with no one having any sort of information about it. Texas and Oklahoma the year before bolting the Big 12 to the SEC. Massive moves that were not consulted with others involved in the process largely that are going to shape the future of the sport.
Well, speaking of changing the landscape of a sport, how about the major announcement this morning, Mike, that Messi is
not taking that Saudi money.
No, he is Miami bound here, and his contract with his current team expires in June. So this means we could see him in MLS either in July or August, and would have the difficult task now of lifting a last place, frequently dysfunctional franchise to the playoffs. Does this not scream Zava to AFC Richmond? Like, if it doesn't, I don't know what does.
But also, does this scream like putting a college player into the little, Pee Wee, when you put the little children and they all just chase the ball, and then you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it seems almost unfair.
Yeah, I think what it screams is, look at us. And for MLS, there's a history of taking renowned players from overseas and bringing them over here as they're getting later into their career and trying to use that attention to drive eyeballs. Now, we know since the, David Beckhams of the world came over and did this a lot long ago when the MLS popularity was a lot lesser, the dynamic's different now. We have a lot of teams over in the United States that do have notoriety in the States. The sport's gained a lot of popularity. And so now this is largely about, and I think the structure of the deal that it seems like is also going to include Messi getting parts of the apparel deal, getting parts of the television kickback from what they're going into doing with Apple, is about Apple feeling good about their investment, right? We're going to put all this money into the sport and trying to make it our own on our platform. And now we have got to have a big name to point to get people involved. Because, yeah, what he does for Miami will be important, but this is really about a rising tide lifting all ships here in the league.
Yeah.
And Beckham is actually a owner of Miami, so.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's right.
A very handsome owner of Miami.
Very handsome owner.
There is no doubt about that, Mike. No argument here.
Ooh. Right? Let's stay in Miami where we have Game 3 of the finals tonight.
Oh.
Should we go to Miami? I don't know.
I would love to.
Obviously, ahead of the series, like, no one was giving Miami a chance. Game 1 happens. Everyone's like, yeah, we told you, like, no shot.
Denver's
then Miami steals Game 2, okay? Now we're tied up. Miami playing at home tonight. So how did the Heat pull this off, and what do we see happening in Game 3?
You know what's interesting, Jesse, is I feel like in giving Miami a chance, I feel like some of us gave them respect, but that was largely, whether it was a chance or respect in how we picked this, because of Jimmy Butler. We had seen what he had done and how bad he'd made people look for the majority of these playoffs. The weird part about how Miami did this is it wasn't necessarily predicated on Jimmy Butler going off and doing this by his damn self the way that we saw him do this early. Jimmy Butler in Game 2 helped facilitate this by being more aggressive, by getting into the lane, by drawing the attention of Denver's defense that in turn created some of the same open looks that they just didn't hit in Game 1. Part of this is as simple as that. His aggressiveness, Bam's aggressiveness, led to better shot making, which allows them to go back and get set on defense, mix in all that zone and fun stuff like that. And so we'll see now for Denver in Game 3. We know Michael Malone got on those guys about effort on the defensive end, and we saw some of the lapsed execution down the stretch, especially in that fourth quarter in a game that was really, really close. I think Denver's going to take Game 3. I think coming off of that, you're going to see renewed focus, whether it's effort or focus on the defensive end, and really the same offense that's been the best in the postseason. They were still great on offense, even if it was more about Jokic as a scorer rather than a facilitator, which is clearly the lesser of two evils if you're Miami.
I mean, Mike, there's been so much going on, like in sports, between the NBA playoffs, between the NHL, between the PGA Tour and Live drama, MLB in absolute full swing here. We got some NFL mini camp developments here. We've got some storylines. Is there one that grabs your attention? A couple dropping this morning. Jaguars They're going to be bringing the stadium of the future to America here. The future epicenter of the NFL is going to be in Jacksonville, Florida. And also, Mike, Josh Allen, the newest cover athlete for Madden.
It's a sick cover, by the way, too.
It is.
Him jumping up into the stands in Buffalo.
And he's single now.
Yeah, there's some. Now I have sources in Buffalo that are.
No.
Yeah.
He's maybe dating a movie star.
Yeah, he's dating the young lady
Haley
from
Steinfeld.
Pitch Perfect.
Yeah.
Pitch Perfect.
But we don't know if it's casual or if it's serious, whatever.
It looks pretty seriously
he had a long-term
casual.
girlfriend, and now he does not.
Yeah,
That's
because you know what happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Josh Allen, litigating Josh Allen's personal life on air is probably not the road I'm going to go down based on the things that we've heard there. That being said, his Madden cover is cool as hell. It's awesome because it really does speak to Buffalo as a fan base too, wrapping their arms around the player in a way they are quite literally on that cover. So that's pretty cool for them. I think most of us waved goodbye to the Madden curse idea a few years ago. And if you're Buffalo, listen, after last year, I think you're willing to mix up the bag a little bit based on how disappointing the season ended up being towards the end. But no, that was great news. Emerson, I'm happy for Jacksonville. I still think that this is an elaborate ploy to try and throw people off the scent that they're going to move y'all to London pretty soon. But, I hope for your sake they stay there in Florida. I also want to give a shout out to Rob Saleh and the Jets for canceling mandatory minicamp and saying, no, we're good on all this work. If you're looking for the Aaron Rodgers effect, you could talk about how he's looked in practice or the relationship between him and Garrett Wilson. They just said, yeah, we're going to have to play in the Hall of Fame game anyway, so we're good, and we're going to throw you guys that doggy bone. It is one of the best parts of every football season is figuring out where the coaching staff's going to give you that bone. Rob Saleh and company did it here, so my hat's off to them for saying, yeah, we're good. We're just going to go ahead and bump all this extra practice.
Yeah, hopefully producer Tom is paying attention, and when we roll into the studio tomorrow, he's like, go home, forget it. We're not going to do this show today.
I don't think that's going to happen, but we're going to do that thing we like. Gojo Rose of the Week. Who gets it and why?
Well, yeah, you guys mentioned all the stuff that we have going on right now. Dominant start to the Stanley Cup final for the Vegas Golden Knights, and Aiden Hill, that dude, has been standing on his freaking head. Sticks, flippers, all of it. He's been an absolute force of nature for a guy that we know wasn't even the day-to-day guy during the season. It was incredible, a 7-2 trouncing in Game 2 of this series. He's been sensational to watch, and it's been a ton of fun watching him ball out on the ice and then all of the people dressed up like Elvis Presley in the crowd out in Vegas making it happen. And Samantha Rivera, stiff arm and drunk Vegas Golden Knight fans in the crowd. Yep. She should receive an auxiliary rose here for courage in the face of battle. Never once broke eye contact with the camera, delivered a Derrick Henry-like vicious stiff arm. She is going to wind up on the teach tape for every high school, college, and pro football coach installing that drill into their playbooks this summer.
She was amazing, too. I think she just went, she was like, no. And then just continued with it.
She said, nope, not going to do this, and then went right into the highlights. That's a pro's pro.
That is a pro's
pro. So if we were going to give our rose out, I think it's going to be to your producer of the Gojo Show. I think it's going to be to Brandon. Look at him putting that hot bod out there on Instagram.
Did you see his latest Instagram?
Look at this thing, dude.
Oh, listen. Guys, he's having a wet boy summer out here right now. He's getting loose in the pool. He's embracing the Florida man in him. And you saw, I think people underestimate Brandon because he was a nose tackle. Yeah. People don't often associate that. But you have to remember, those are usually some of the biggest, most dynamic athletes on the field. I have seen Brandon do things that would blow the mind of the average mere mortal person. So you guys are just getting a small taste of the athlete that lives inside that massive chest of his.
Yeah, I saw that video and I just thought, athlete.
I immediately thought thirst trap.
Yeah, same. I was like,
people make money on OnlyFans doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He might be too. You don't know that. He could use a different name.
It's just
You're
a little
right. You're right. All right.
Mike, we love you, man. Always a good time. And rap is what
you don't want to talk about that website. Okay, continue.
All right, cool. We will dive into more of the NBA Finals. Game 3 tonight. Who will play hero for the Heat? Or is Denver just going to absolutely smash them? We'll discuss it with our analysts coming up next. A lot of talk about Messi to Miami, but I'm sorry. We are here to dive into best bets for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. We've got a couple guys here to talk about it. DraftKings contributors Julian Edlow and Chinmay Vaidya. Damn good to have you here. Happy Wednesday to both of you, or hump day, as Jules likes to call it.
Okay. So after a Game 2 win in Denver, fellas, Heat coming into Game 3 as 2.5-point home faves. Do you like them to manage that one, Julian? Do we think that they cover? Do we think that they win? Do we think that the Nuggets come out and embarrass them?
Do you think?
I have a much better feel for how I think this game is going to start than how I think it ends. We've seen Miami pull this comeback charade too many times. They have whatever it is now, 10 wins as 7.5-point underdogs or larger. Obviously, they're a much smaller home dog in this one, but as home underdogs, they're 5-4 straight up and 7-2 against the spread this season. That poor home ATS record is mostly due to being a heavy favorite early in the season and not covering those numbers. What I do think that we can project is that Denver is going to give very good effort early in this game. They were just called out by their coach for not giving good effort in the NBA Finals and unraveled down the stretch after almost still winning a home game but losing it. So my play for this one is going to be Denver on the first half money line. I think Denver comes out sharp, cleans up on defense a little bit, tightens things up. And, Jokic is able to get other guys involved. And Miami doesn't mind taking a punch in these games and coming back later, as we've seen time after time. So Denver first half money line is how I'm going to play this one. And we'll see how it unravels later in the game.
All right, Chinmay, do you have a better idea of how this one is going to go down?
Not really. I mean, any Heat game this postseason has been questionable at best in terms of how it's going to go. I will say, though, that Miami, after starting the playoffs very strong at home, I think they won their first 5 home games, maybe even their first 6 home games heading into that Celtics series. But then they lost the last 2 at home and haven't looked as sharp at home since those last 2 games they played against Boston. So I will say that Denver is the team that I lean with here, just because the question has been for Miami, can they hit their 3-point shots? And we saw in Game 1 that they had a lot of open shots that they missed. And in Game 2, they had a lot of open shots that they hit, and they still only won by 3 because of a late push by the Nuggets. So I would still lead Denver here. I think both Michael Porter Jr. and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are more involved. They simply can't be that bad again. And I think that Denver is the team that wins and covers here in Game 3.
All right, Chinmay, looking at the total here on the DK Sportsbook, 214.5. With my naked eye, that total looks a little low. Which direction would you go in here?
So on this particular number, the Heat at home are 4-4. So they like to keep it low scoring. They like to muck things up. They like to make it sort of a grinded out type of game. The Nuggets, when they play on the road, have gone over this line in every single game. And I would, just because it's a lower number, I would lean on the over. Even in a blowout, one team can put up 125, 130 points and automatically send this total over. I think that the Nuggets are very capable of doing that. I would lean against Miami putting up that type of scoring performance. So I would lean over only because this total is lower. But if the Heat have their way in this game, it could be way under this number. We know that Miami likes to really slow things down. So it's still a toss-up for me, but I would lean over.
All right, Jules, over is cashed, I believe, in 3 of the last 4 meetings between these two.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to go if I feel like I know the first half of this game, I'm going to stick to the first half of this game and not go any deeper. The first half under has managed to cash in both games in Denver. It stayed well under in Game 1. And then in Game 2, even despite the red-hot shooting by Miami early, it still landed on 108 in the first half. We're looking at 110 flat here, juiced minus 120 to the under. I think, again, Denver's going to come out and give better effort. They were getting crushed for leaving those shooters wide open. They're going to be sharper in terms of defending shooters just by simply not leaving them open. That's what I'm confident in early in this game. And then Denver has been way better at home all season. They use that home court, playing at altitude, to run teams out of the gym. I think that their offense, as it's been all season, is going to slow down by a few points on the road. So give me the first half under 110 in this one.
Ooh.
All right, we got a lot of props on the board for tonight. Julian, what is your favorite Game 3 player prop?
My favorite Game 3 player prop, I'm going to split the difference with two here, but I promise I'll be quick. Both of them are points plus rebounds. We're going over on Kevin Love, which should be at 10.5. Yep, over 10.5 points plus rebounds on Kevin Love, and over 21.5 points plus rebounds on Michael Porter Jr. Kevin Love was a huge adjustment putting him into the lineup in Game 2. Miami just can't compete with Denver's size unless they have a little bit more on the floor. So he might not finish games, but he's going to start both halves and get a little bit of run. He had 6 points and 10 rebounds in Game 2, and he shot terribly. So if he knocks down a few more shots, I think this one should easily go over. And then Michael Porter Jr. was probably the most specific guy getting called out for effort in Game 2. He shot awful at home. I expect him to be much more aggressive and the shot to wind up falling. He's been good on the road in this playoff run. I think he's gone over this 21.5 points plus rebounds combined on the road, 8 of his last 9 road games. I think he's going to knock down shots and be rebounding the ball for Denver.
All right, Chinmay, which player prop are you confident in for this evening?
I'm going to take kind of half of what Julian said. I'm going to go Michael Porter Jr., but only on his rebounding prop. I'm going to go over 7.5 rebounds. That comes in at plus 110 on the DK Sportsbook. He's gone over this line in 10 of the 17 playoff games, 4 out of the last 6 games, and over the last 6 games has not pulled down less than 6 rebounds. So he's going to get close to that number. And, you know, as Julian mentioned, Porter Jr. was kind of the guy who was called out the most by fans and even his coaching staff and maybe some of his teammates on his effort. We know that the points and the shots may or may not fall. It's a make or miss league, but the rebounding has been more consistent. And I think at plus money, this is a good play.
All right, gentlemen, before you two take off, let's look at the showdown contest here on DraftKings. Hook me up with a good captain's play tonight, Chinmay. And, of course, the usual suspects near the top. Jokic, nearly $23,000. Jimmy Butler, about $5,000 cheaper.
It's tempting to go $5,000 cheaper for Jimmy Butler, especially at home, but Butler has not been as efficient of late. He's struggled from the field over the last 4 or 5 games. I think he's shooting under 40% from the floor in that stretch and simply hasn't put in the points. So I know the price point is very high, but it's just Jokic is always the answer here. He's still averaging a 30-point triple-double despite putting up only 4 assists in the last game. I think he bounces back from that number. He cuts down on the turnovers a little bit, makes some better reads, finding some soft spots in that Miami defense. Jokic is always the play here, even though the price point is insane.
All right, Jules, the price point is insane. You got a different strategy for the captain spot?
Yeah, I mean, Jokic is always the correct answer, but I'll say that Kevin Love is underpriced given his starting role, and I think he's going to do some rebounding and scoring, and the shot will fall. And even without the shot falling, he had 25 DraftKings points in Game 2, so at a really cheap price point, you take him. Let's say the shot goes down, he can go for 30 DraftKings points here. You multiply it by 1.5, you're opening up the rest of your lineup for a lot more guys. So I think Kevin Love is the value play here if you want to go that route and then have a lot more room to fit some of the stars in the rest of your lineup.
All right, good stuff, fellas. Thank you so much. We will talk to you guys later in the week after we see how Game 3 goes down.
Yeah.
But coming up
excited,
next, PGA Tour / Live Golf, whatever it is going to be called. We're going to talk about that, and we'll do a Canadian Open preview with our golf dudes. That's coming up next.
Okay. Okay. Well, yesterday was quite a day in the golf world with the partnership between the rival golf leagues, PGA Tour and Live Golf, catching literally every single person on the planet by surprise, except maybe like 3 people, Jay Monahan and a few others who were apparently doing this negotiating and not telling a single player about it. And then Rory McIlroy, we got to hear from him for the first time this morning. And he says, I've come to terms with it. I've resigned myself to this is what's going to happen. It's very hard to keep up with people who have more money than anyone else. So that is interesting stuff. We got Jason Silva here of the Action Network, RotoWire, senior golf writer Len Hochberg, Jeff Ulrich, DraftKings contributor, hanging with us. Jay, I'll start with you. I mean, this was a mind-boggling move that, again, no one saw coming. Biggest question right now is simply why? Why now?
Well, for all the talk over the last 18 months from PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan and Rory McIlroy and other leaders of the PGA Tour about integrity and loyalty and devotion and staying true to the product itself, the PGA Tour, in the end, it's big business, and for the 972,000th time, we have learned that money talks and the almighty dollar wins out in the end, and that's what's going to happen here. From everything I've heard, the PGA Tour, whatever this new for-profit umbrella company is going to be, and whatever it's going to be called, could be double, triple, maybe even quadruple the valuation of what it currently is. Look, I don't care what your business is. You have a chance to do that. Even if you don't like where the money is coming from, you can understand why they would take it.
Jeff Ulrich, what do you think the new organization will look like?
I mean, I think eventually the Live will dissolve. I think that's one thing that the players who stayed loyal to the PGA will put their foot down with. I'm not sure how much leverage they have. They've proven they basically have no leverage at this point because the commissioner is doing deals behind their back. But at the same time, I do think that you'll see the players who went over to Live eventually come back to the fold, and a new PGA with some extended, perhaps different events, team formats, go forward, and it'll be a lot bigger, as Jay mentioned, and it'll be a lot more money available, as Jason mentioned, and it'll be profitable. And I think that the one thing for the game of golf and for fans and for bettors like us, I do think this is going to be a positive move in the long run. We're going to have bigger fields, we're going to have more elite fields, we're going to have deeper fields. And it's going to be almost every week. And the odds on these players are going to be better, and that'll be fun. But the way it all went about, obviously, and where the money is coming from, it's going to be talked about for a long time. And there's still a lot to be settled. So, and one of those things is that needs to be settled is how do these Live players get back in the fold? Mm-hmm. And how do you bring the Live players back in the fold without alienating every single player on the PGA and somehow making them happy enough where they're not only going to go out on the course, but will go out on the course and, promote the product and be a positive part of the organization again. It's a long road here before we get to that point.
For sure. And the 2023 season on both sides for Live and the PGA Tour are going to continue as scheduled. And then Live and PGA will establish a fair and objective process for players who want to reapply for the PGA Tour and DP World Tour. Len, hypocrisy aside here, could this actually be a great thing for the sport and its fans?
I guess eventually it will be. It may take some time because ultimately what golf fans seemingly wanted most of all was all the best players playing in the same place with some regularity. I mean, we saw it with the designated events. Granted, the Live guys weren't there, but those designated events, I mean, now there are too many of them, it seems. There are a lot of them. But it was great theater to have all the top players, the top PGA Tour players playing in those designated events. It'll be interesting to see how quickly the Live guys come back. Some of those guys still have contracts. They were 3, 4, and 5-year deals, and they're still getting checks or supposed to get checks every year. It's hard to imagine they can continue to get those checks on January 1st or whenever they get them and be back at the PGA Tour. So there might be some issue where they have to decide, do I want to continue getting my 20 million lump sum, 40 million lump sum, 8 million lump sum, or forfeit that and come back to the PGA Tour as quickly as possible? I think that's one of the fascinating things. There's so many things to look at here. That's sort of under the radar for now, and understandably so, but that's going to be a bigger deal when it's actually time to come back.
All right, Jason, one more for you about this. Is this a victory for Live? Is this validation for guys like Phil Mickelson?
don't really think so because like Len said, like Jeff said, I think Liv is eventually going to dissolve. That's the subtle take that I think Jay Monahan gave us yesterday on the conference call with the media that they're going to take some aspects of Liv. There will be a team concept moving forward in whatever the PGA Tour looks like in 2024 and beyond, but this is not really a win for Liv. Maybe they disrupted the game of golf. The initial idea of this went through, but Liv is essentially going to, I don't think, and again, the golf world is moving very, very quickly these days, and it can change tomorrow, but as of right now, I don't see Liv surviving this. The Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, which is investing in this new product, the new entity, that's different from Liv. They started Liv, they owned and operated Liv, but this is not a PGA Tour Liv merger. This is a PGA Tour PIF merger, which is something that Rory McIlroy said throughout his press conference today. So I think we have to understand that maybe Liv got the job done. Maybe Liv did what they wanted to do. My guess is when we hear from Phil Mickelson, at least next week during the U.S. Open, if not before that, that Phil will say, hey, you're welcome, everybody. Look what I did for you. And he will celebrate in his own way. But I don't know that this is necessarily a win for Liv whatsoever.
It's a win for the PIF fund who wanted in on the PGA Tour, and they used Liv to get it, and they got the job done. It's got the players certainly gotten rich, but it's a win for the PIF.
Okay.
Jason, really quick, does Jay Monahan survive this? Like, what have the players told you? What have you heard?
Yeah, so Jesse, yesterday at the player-only meeting with Jay Monahan at the RBC Canadian Open, the overwhelming majority of players there were against Monahan, were asking for his resignation. In fact, when that was brought up, there was an ovation for a player who brought it up. And so they are not in favor of Monahan right now, but Jay Monahan has a backup plan, and there are going to be a whole lot of loopholes to this moving forward. Loopholes are going to be a theme in all of this moving forward. And Jay Monahan has already been named the CEO of the umbrella company, the for-profit company, which will hold the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and the Public Investment Fund together. And so maybe that means he's not the PGA Tour commissioner anymore. Maybe there isn't a PGA Tour commissioner, but he will absolutely be involved moving forward, whether the players like it or not.
And Jeff, Rory apparently has confidence in Monahan. He said this morning, and it's fitting that he is the favorite there in your backyard, the RBC Canadian Open, now up to plus 600 on the DK Sportsbook. Are you all in on a Rory three-peat here?
What a difference a year makes.
Right?
Exact same situation last year, except that you had an enraged Rory going out there on the course, trying to stick up for the PGA Tour, showing this is where the elite players are. This year, it's a defeated Rory. It's a shocked Rory. It's probably a bit of a saddened Rory. And no, I want no part of backing Rory McIlroy this week. It would be nice if he did. I'd certainly applaud it. I'd love to see it, even though I wouldn't profit off it. But no, this is too much to take in my opinion. And yes, you can certainly find some solace on the golf course. But I think emotionally, Rory is just in a different place than he was at this event last year.
Yeah, Len, Rory stumbled on Sunday at the Memorial, but at least he was in the mix, right?
Yeah, he's been in the mix a bunch, and he obviously hasn't won. And I was not really big on him to win this week, even before what's happened this week. I mean, who knows how much sleep he's gotten the last night, and will get. It had to be excruciatingly hard for him to come out and face the media and answer those questions today, and then come out and play golf in 2 days. I mean, I thought he showed such honor and such dignity today. Way more than he had every right. He could have been angrier than all the 138th ranked guys, and he took the high road. Just an incredible performance today. I think it will be better than his performance on the weekend, though.
Okay, Jason, do you agree with that? I mean, his wedge game was absolutely atrocious on Sunday at Muirfield Village.
That feels like a year ago, by the way.
It does.
The fact that he went into the final round tied for the 54-hole lead and made 7 bogeys on Sunday. Look, I still think it's a good thing that Rory McIlroy with his C- game, I mean, this wasn't just not his A game, this was his C- game, is still able to contend on a course like Muirfield Village. That said, this week, I see it in one of two ways. Either Rory McIlroy is going to win this thing by 10 because all this weight has been lifted from his shoulders, or he's going to spend the entire week curled up in the fetal position on the floor of the clubhouse. And I'm not sure which one's closer, but I'm not going to bet on him to see what happens.
All right, another name near the top of the odds board and DFS salaries is Hatton. So, Len, do you think he could be a good play this week? Sounds like everybody's going to be avoiding Rory, so got to go with somebody else.
Well, that's unfortunate because I do like Hatton. I talked about Hatton here last week. He has really been sneaky, one of the best players on tour this year. And of course, he's sneaky because he hasn't won, but he's finished second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. He was 12th last week. It was a bad week. I mean, he's not Scotty Scheffler where he finishes 12th every week. But a look at the world rankings, and I know that's a bit of a lightning rod, but there are only 5 players with more world ranking points than him this year. And 4 of them are the obvious of Rahm and Scheffler and Koepka and Hovland and also Max Homa. But he is number 6 in points this year. He's playing really well. I think this is a good spot for him. The price is, not terrible. I do like him this week, and I like him going forward the whole season. He's just been playing great golf.
Jason, how do we feel about Hatton?
My favorite play on the board this week, I hope the listeners, the viewers out there, got him at 14-1 earlier in the week as opposed to the 11-1 that he's at right now. But some stats based on what Len was saying there. He is 3rd on the PGA Tour in total strokes gained this season. What does that mean? It's the greatest barometer of performance that we have. I know people like to look at wins and top 10 finishes. That shows your results. Performance is based on total strokes gained against your competition. He's averaging more than 2 strokes gained per round, behind only Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm. And I can tell you that over the last 5 years, only 4 players have averaged 2 strokes gained per round. It was Rory twice, Jon Rahm, Dustin Johnson. Those 4 players in those years combined for 10 victories. 3 of them had 3 wins in those seasons. Lesson is, at some point, you play this well, you perform this well, the wins come. I expect Hatton to win at some point. Why not against an inferior field in a place where it should be a little comfortable for him? He likes playing the week before a major championship. This will be the 5th straight time that he's played the week before a major. He's had some success doing it in the past as well. I like everything about Hatton except that number that keeps shortening a little bit on the board.
Jeff, we have a minute to go in show. Hook us up with your pick to win the RBC Canadian Open. You brought that winning magic last week. Do it again.
Yeah, for betting, I'm going to go with Tommy Fleetwood. You look at players just further down the board. I like Hatton too for DFS, but Tommy Fleetwood, far bigger price, around plus 2,000. A player who yesterday as well just decided to go out and practice rather than take in all this stuff, and I think that puts him in a better spot for this week.
Jeff, it is time to seek help. Jason, can you bring us a winner for a 2nd straight week?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Tyrrell Hatton. Look, I think that at some point those wins are going to come. If you want a long shot this week, no Canadian has won the Canadian Open since Pat Fletcher in 1954. Take a swig every time you hear that this week, by the way. Nick Taylor, big number next to his name. I do like him.
All right, I will be getting drunk this weekend. Len, who's hoisting the trophy?
Tyrrell Hatton will win. Sam Burns scares me. A weaker field, a hot putter. We're going to need a putter this week, but Tyrrell Hatton will win. But Sam Burns could come close.
Boy, the lack of Tommy Fleetwood.
Oh,
All right,
buddy,
that's a
grow
show.
up, Jeff.
That is
Grow
a
up.
show. We'll take it to the Twitter streets. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. See
Thirsty
you then.
Thursday tomorrow.
Say so.